Hello, legendary listeners, and welcome to the Legendary Ladies podcast. This week, Kat and I, Amy, we're back to talk about the whole season of Heated Rivalry.
Again, is this the first time we did a pilot pod and reviewed a whole season? I don't know. Maybe we've done it once or twice, but I don't know if we really do that very often.
I think we did it. I think Morgan and I did it for My Lady Jane.
Or
maybe we just did the entire season of My Lady Jane. I don't remember, but Morgan and I had a My Lady Jane obsession. You and I have a Heated Rivalry obsession. And we should point out, Morgan has watched, binged, and loved the whole series. She just couldn't make the chat. But this show has brought the legendary ladies back together. Not back together, but like it's
something we're excited about.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to talk about this. So it turns out I'm not the only one that was excited to talk about this. The entire internet was excited. And
very much so.
Our Heated Rivalry episode did incredibly well, which is one of the reasons we're back. The other is I'm just really excited to talk about this because I keep asking people at work, have you watched Heated Rivalry? Have you seen Heated Rivalry?
And they haven't?
Like, no.
That's crazy. That's
Don't worry,
actually
I'm talking
crazy.
them into it. Don't worry, I'm working on it.
Because it's one of those shows, I feel like if you watch TV, I haven't met anybody, and again, I have a lot of queer friends, so maybe that's the reason why, but even like straight friends are like, yeah, I watched it. So
it's the holidays is a factor for a lot of my friends and a lot of family and stuff who haven't seen it, but also like our job is 24/7, so like we don't have holidays per se. We actually slow down this time of the year a little bit because it's a little less crazy and less busy and less stressful. So now everybody's going to get a chance to watch it when it's rainy days and everything.
Well, I'm excited to hear what other people think of it because I was telling this to Amy. I've gotten a lot of it on my feed because one of my friends is a really big, and again, I like the show too, but I'm not usually looking on Instagram about it. Yeah, I usually am watching like sports things.
Your
or
algorithm flipped?
Yeah, it flipped to all Heated Rivalry stuff because she was sending me a lot.
That's
and then
hilarious.
we hung out and she's like, oh, did you see these videos? And I was like, oh, let me see what you're talking about. And I watched maybe like 5 in a row. And then the next day it was all Heated Rivalry. And I'm like, wow, you really just have to watch like 5 videos in a row. And I guess because she has been sending it, so it was in my DMs too. But so what was interesting is that she was like, and she knows I like basketball a lot, and I have a friend who loves soccer. So like my other friend who I went to college with really likes women's soccer. So the three of us, we all went to college together. And my friend's like, I like Heated Rivalry, so I want to go see a hockey game, but I want to see the girls' hockey game. So we're going to be seeing, we're going to see like a $20 seat hockey game, which I don't know much about hockey. And I saw the comment somewhere. I don't know if I learned anything about hockey with this show.
No, you didn't.
You don't learn anything about hockey.
So here's the thing. One of my coworkers and we've actually, despite not seeing the show, we have talked about this show extensively. So I have a really good coworker who's from New York, Pennsylvania area. Huge hockey fan. He is a hockey fangirl the way we are TV and movie fangirl, right? He just loves hockey. And there's this podcast called
I know we're going to talk about. Yeah, it's the 3 guys, right?
Yes. Yeah. They did a whole segment on how Heated Rivalry is bringing people to watch hockey. And
I'm going to a game and I don't know anything about hockey.
Apparently, so this is the best quote I think I've ever seen. The league spokesperson, John Weinstein, told Front Office Sports, which is the article I pulled this up on, there are lots of different ways to get hooked on hockey. And in the NHL's 108-year history, we have to admit this might just be the most novel and surprising new way fans are finding the sport.
And I love that.
I love that. I think that's so great. What a wonderful turnaround. People who are hockey fans are like, what are they talking about? Then they go and watch the show. What a cool little crossover. I love that.
Well, especially it being a queer show, I think bringing like straight men to watch this queer show, which I've seen a lot of, which I think is really, really cool. Just seeing like people like hockey watching it, or like, you know, the boyfriend of the girl watching it, or even just the guy like, I really like sports, so I want to watch this show. So I think it's really cool. And it's like, it's interesting to see the explosion of sports in general in the last 4 or 5 years. Obviously with women's sports, you have the Caitlin Clark effect, basketball, and obviously there's other players that brought eyes to it too. And now with Heated Rivalry, you're going to get a whole new audience, a lot of women and a lot of queer people, just like women's sports, a lot of queer people, a lot of women now watching sports. So it's cool to see that. But going into Heated Rivalry, we did watch the first episode. And what I like about this season a lot is that it's not you can't judge it by its pilot, really, because obviously it's the same tone. But one of my biggest complaints of season one, episode one, and I didn't have many complaints. This was just my big complaint of like, oh, I don't feel like I know the characters. But I actually think the season did a pretty solid job. By the end, you're like, oh, I like both of these characters. I want to see where it goes. And I'm surprised by that because it is based on a book. I know also the book is like different couples. And the main couple, Ilya and Shane, only have 2 books, I think, in the whole thing. So I'm curious how they're going to fill up more of the show. Because the first book was Scott, that's his name, right? Scott and
Really?
Kip. Yeah, they were the first book. And then the second book is actually Shane and Ilya. So, and that's their book is done after the first book. I think they did most of the story here. So I'm curious, like, what do they do as the show goes on? And again, we haven't read the book. So if you guys have read it in the comments, how closely do they follow the books? Do they just use it as a blueprint? Because then if they only use it for a blueprint, you could go pretty far after this.
I like what you say about how you can't judge it by its pilot. I was totally taken with the pilot, but one of the things I liked about it was the spiciness and how well the spiciness was choreographed and shot cinematographically. Like, I enjoyed that aspect of it in addition to the characters. But I found myself, as I think happens with good romance novels, good romance movies, good romance television, I found myself more drawn to the quiet moments between the characters and the truth and the honesty between the characters more than just the spicy sexiness, which mimics the way those sort of Fast and Furious, lust-driven relationships.
The car movies, like those car movies, because you said Fast and Furious. You said Fast and Furious. I was like, I wonder where this is going.
Where's she going?
Yeah.
No. You've heard of the phrase we actually mentioned it, lust at first sight,
right.
And how sometimes that doesn't pan out, and then other times in real life, it does lead to something more. I think the thing that impressed me most, first off, there's 2 main things I want to talk about. The first is we're going to get into the Scott Hunter episode 3 thing, because that one made me cry like a baby cat.
Well, and also that one was really what you were just implying, which I think is interesting, is that one's your more stereotypical romance story, because it was a little slower, then it kind of heated up, then it got slow again, and then with our main cast, our main couple, it's very hot in the beginning and then it slows down a little bit. And what I think the show does a good job at is when it does slow down, it still has obviously the hotter scenes. But the thing I didn't love about the couple in the first episode was, like, I felt like that was all we saw. But I think the show evened out really well in the end, where you got to see both, which I enjoyed. And I liked the Scott episode a lot too, because I felt like I understood their characters much quicker. I was like, oh, I get him really well. First 5 minutes, I understand his character. And then the boyfriend character, you meet his friends. Kip, you get to meet him at his job, Like, I just think there was a lot of development.
It was written that way, though. It was written with the understanding that they're going to have this massive moment with Scott and Kip in the end of the 5th episode, and that's the only real time you're going to see it. So you, as the audience, have to buy how emotional and big that is. And we're going to get into that in a little bit. So let's table that for a second. But going back to the characters of Ilya and Shane, I remember originally thinking, okay, Shane it's almost from his POV. It feels like he's mostly the main character. Ilya is the sort of ambiguous one. And I remember talking about how his English was just really, like, his Russian accent was so strong, it was actually hard for me to connect with. And someone on our YouTube commented on that it's supposed to mimic the progression of his character as the time goes along. He's learning English better. He is, a native Russian speaker. And I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense.
And that the actor is not Russian, which is crazy. I saw an interview because of this Instagram thing. I've been seeing so much Heated Rivalry. He was just saying, like, oh, I had to learn a lot of the Russian, like, a week before. I'm like, that's crazy. Yeah.
He did really good. But I enjoyed watching Elia's character progression more than Shane because I understood Shane very quickly. You get to understand Shane quickly.
And I don't know if
I
there's as much depth to him by the end. I'm not saying he's
um
not a deep character, but I'm saying his story has been told a lot. Like that version
yes.
of that character. Obviously, the Asian representation is very different, and that's something
Mhm.
I enjoyed and was different. But the relationship with his parents is something we've
Mhm.
seen stories before, but this Russian backstory, I have not seen that personally. So I thought that was
Wait,
interesting.
whose story have we seen before? I feel like Shane's
Shane.
story. Yes.
Yeah, and
Ilya.
Ilya we haven't seen as much, I'm saying.
You know
Yeah.
what's interesting is there's a TV show I've talked about before called Madam Secretary, and they had a character that was like a subplot character for a while who was a Russian he was a queer Russian military individual, and the US tries to recruit him into the CIA by basically blackmailing him and saying, "We'll out you to your government." And it is genuinely dangerous to be
Mhm.
gay
Yeah,
in
which they
Russia.
talk about a lot in the
In
show too.
this.
Yeah.
And I remember there were a lot of moments in this show where I'm always an emotional TV watcher, where I felt emotional and I had like teared up. But the first time that Elia cries, I was like, oh my God. Like I felt that deep in my chest because it's this character that's trying so hard to be tough and trying so hard to be brave and has just absolutely never had anyone. And the mirroring of how he never has anyone and how he is being so brave and willing to go to Shane's house to talk to his parents about their relationship
Mhm.
when Shane's the one who has the supportive parents and Elia will never have that. Like it was such a beautiful story that they told and I was really really impressed.
Well, especially from his monologue, where I think even past like he wasn't loved, it was the idea that he was used a lot, like the idea that his family relied on him, and he's like, well, why do I do this and put myself through this, even though I will continue to do it because they're my family. I thought that was
Mhm.
really interesting. And I thought that's why he became such a well-rounded character. Now, Shane's character, he is very closed off. So that makes it a little, that
Mhm.
why we don't get as much information with him. But I like him because I like the actor a lot. And I like the last episode a lot with him because we got to view him a little bit more because of the parents. Like you're like, okay, what is that relationship? How are the parents going to react? And then they were like very, very cool about it. So I thought that was a very interesting coming out scene. And obviously, and we'll talk about Shane overall, but yeah, he's not Shane, Scott. They cannot have two S characters in the same show. But yeah, his coming out in the show and then them seeing it I thought was very interesting because also, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know of many athletes at all, especially in like of hockey or football or basketball, who have been active athletes who have come out as queer. There's been a lot of, not a lot, but there's been a number of athletes that have come
I'm
out
not the
after
right
their career.
person to ask.
Yeah, comments, let us know. I don't know of, I know there's maybe been some like ice skaters and people like that have come
Mhm.
out in the
But someone who
Olympics and
would do
stuff
it
like
on a
that.
world stage like that.
Well, and also, yeah, that's they have in that regard, but also like something that's a much masculine sport like
Mhm.
hockey or basketball or football. I don't know of anyone. I've seen like, I don't know if you've seen Ted Lasso. They did a arc with that, and it was an interesting arc. I thought they did a good job with that. And I think that's my only nitpick of the show is I almost wish they showed the stakes a little bit more for Shane in that regard, where you
Mhm.
understand like, oh yeah, if you come out, like that's scary because this is a very masculine sport. But I only know that because of information I have in my life, not as much from the show because I don't think there's,
Um
for Ilya, I understand because you have
yeah.
the Russian background and they talk about that. But for the Shane, I don't know why he's not coming out in the context of the show, not in the world, because I understand
I
the context of the world.
What's interesting is yes, I think this is one of those shows and we've talked about it before, shows that rely on an audience inherent intelligence,
Hmm.
shows that kind of expect you as the audience to understand that this is a problem. They give the audience credit for knowing that to come out in a sport like this is going to be hard.
I
I
just wish they
think
said it. I understand there's
but
like the context, but I just wish there's a commentary there and they don't talk about it as much.
I think that's what episode 3 was for. I think that's what Scott's story told really well, because it was a character who already understood that he was queer, already understood what he wanted, knew that at some point he wanted to come out, but knew it had to wait until he retired. And he said that very
But what were the
clearly to Kim.
consequences? Because he didn't say that. He said, "Oh, people will be affected." How?
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Like they're like, "Oh,
Yeah,
my
okay.
team will be affected." And then again, as someone who understands the world, possibly homophobia, possibly he won't have sponsors, blah 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 blah. But like, I kind of say show that, because then like there's just this inherent fear of like, I think people will be this, but there's not much homophobia in the show, which is
I
fine. I don't want to see that, but
yeah,
there's not. No
I
one's
do
really a
think
jerk about it.
I think we're going to get that in season 2, because you're talking about what are we going to do for season 2. I think that's going to start coming up
Because Scott
in
came out and we don't see
in
the
season 2.
reaction.
Well, he wins the NHL award, the MVP of
Sure,
the
and
year,
he
which I
does
thought was
the.
interesting. The
Mhm.
beautiful monologue. Now, I'm the nerd who was listening to the applause in the background during the monologue, and you can hear the applause level change as he talks about certain aspects of his queer relationship in that monologue, which is telling. But I think that's what we're going to get in season 2, is the reaction to all of this, and the idea of how do these two characters, um, are they able to come out? Can they come out? Are they going to use Scott for help? Is Scott going to be like, whoa, 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 hold on a second. Like, I appreciate being a role model, but I didn't sign up to be everybody's therapist here. Like, I'm curious to see where they go with it, but I think that is going to be a part of it. And I would like to see the stakes, because I do appreciate what you're saying about that. I understand what you're saying, that we are supposed to understand and know the stakes, but maybe we don't truly know the stakes
Well, and then also something
yet.
that'll be interesting is the idea that Scott's a white queer guy who is very masculine presenting. So he could be maybe a face of queerness
True.
and is very palatable to people. But Shane is Asian, right? He is a person of color. Ilya has the Russian background. Like that could
Hmm.
be different for them because they aren't
And
maybe the face, in that regard.
they are rivals. Like, I thought it was really
Sure.
interesting them sitting down having a whole conversation about, they're like, okay, so we were enemies to lovers and the whole world thinks we're still enemies to lovers. How do we in fact convince them we're not enemies?
Well, let's also talk about this in sports. So if you want, if and again, I know you don't watch sports as much, but or at all.
Does
But
ice dancing count? I'm so
not
excited for the Olympics, Kat. I'm
not
so
in the
excited.
there is a bisexual girl who's going to be in the Olympics, which is cool, and she's out. So I think that's very cool, and she's on Team USA.
So
But
excited.
this what I'm going to say is not in the context of ice skating.
Right.
So what's interesting is what sells tickets is rivalries, right? It's the idea that someone doesn't like each other. And a lot of people think the NBA is not doing as well as it used to because everyone likes each other. In the regard, there is no rivalry. The NBA, like the basketball players.
Got it. Okay.
Right. So male basketball players, a lot of people feel like it's not doing as well because like it's not like, okay, Steph Curry and LeBron James, they hate each other because they don't. So it's like, who's selling the tickets? But when Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark in the WNBA had a rivalry, people were like, oh, I want to kind of see what's going on here. Like, I want to see like these two people that don't like each other, quote unquote, go against each other, and you have more rivalries up to that point, which is interesting. And then Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, that was like a big rivalry as well, and that's like when the NBA was like starting to do well again because like two people against each other, and you want to see these rival teams go against each other. So that's the context too. If you have the two rivals in hockey, who's selling tickets? If they like each other, what's selling it? Obviously, for us gays, like if you're gay or like, or if you like gay stuff, the gays are there wanting to see them kiss. But like, a majority of people probably watching men's hockey in the context of the show or in the world are not gay people. That's
a great point. That in and of itself is a whole arc they can explore.
Sure.
Is how do they make that work? How what happens if, he wants to move to Ottawa to be closer to Shane, and Ottawa's like, actually, we don't want this. We don't want this problem. Like that's a great story. I like that the point you bring up.
And again, I don't know. And these are all fake teams, so I looked it up because I was like, I don't know anything about hockey. So I'm like, are these real
But
hockey
apparently,
teams?
Montreal and Boston is a massive actual
Well,
rivalry.
that's what I was going to ask is that if Ilya moves from a Boston team to Ottawa, then the rivalry is
Mm-hmm.
also kind of taken away because it's just like, wait,
Mm-hmm.
like you were just saying, like Boston and Montreal have this big rivalry,
Mm-hmm.
but if you switch, it's interesting because like yeah, when you trade team members, that's a big deal too. Yeah, so I think there's what I like about this show a lot is that there's a lot of potential for more.
Yeah.
And what I also
Yes.
liked about this show is that it was only 6 episodes, so you
Yeah.
kind of wanted more. It wasn't.
Yes.
It went very fast. Like I just thought it was a really well paced show. And again, I like how many different people are watching it. I really enjoy because like
Yeah.
this simply could have been just for the girly girls and the gay men, but I really feel like it was a cultural phenomenon in some ways. Like a lot of like people were talking about Stranger Things and they're watching the finale, and everyone was also saying like, but we also got to sneak away and watch the finale of Heated Rivalry. So I think that's cool.
I so what were some of the I have some very clear standout moments for me as a fan of this series. Do you have anything that you got really excited about? Like any plays that really nailed it for you?
Definitely no hockey plays because I still don't know anything about hockey. But no,
So there's this thing called a no.
yeah, there's a thing called a puck.
Two teams.
I will say I
Apparently,
kind of
hold on, wait. 3 periods? Is that actually accurate?
for hockey. I don't know. I'm gonna look because I again don't know anything about hockey. In basketball,
Dear
there's
Google.
4. How many? I think there's 3 in hockey.
I think there's 3 as well.
Let's see.
I theater.
There's 3 periods.
Great.
They are 3 periods. So there you go.
I'm so on brand.
I did not know that about hockey. I think I did in the back of my brain. But yeah,
I
that's one thing
they said it in the show.
that's one thing I do want to see a little bit more in the next season, especially for those people that kind of came for the hockey. I would like to see a game like build up to a game and be like, this is the big playoffs. Like what? Because like obviously we skipped a lot of years in season 1, so it wasn't really about a big game or a big playoff. I want to see that, like especially because they're rivalries. Like I would want to see like when you're in love and the press is telling you shouldn't be, like what does that mean?
Well,
I would really want to play with that.
That was the whole business when they were playing in the game in episode 5 and Shane gets distracted and then just gets absolutely pummeled. That's one of the standout moments for me, and it's because of whether it was directorially or it was written this way. Sorry, my dog's barking. Rowan. I think one of the standout moments is in episode 5 when he gets pummeled, but they have the commentators talking about Ilya's face.
Sure.
And how Ilya
I saw, yeah.
absolutely stricken, like terrified that something's happened to Shane. And the commentators are like, oh my God, he looks just so pale. But yeah, they've been rivals for years. I mean, they must have respect for each other. And so these commentators are writing a narrative for them because that's all they know and that's what they can do. And that's just a great example of how, from the outside looking in, we're writing a narrative that makes someone's relationship work for them.
And also make that player
that moment.
And that player get more clout though, because like the idea of like humanizing a player, because like a game is just a game, right? It is just like people on the court. But the way you sell games is when, again, you have a LeBron James or you have a whatever. Because like I was literally just watching a basketball game before this because I like to watch basketball. But one of the players was helping from another team was helping another player get up, and they're like, "How nice the sportsmanship!" Because they just also have to like fill up the air too.
But that's a good point about how like what would it be like if we got a chance to see these two characters from the commentator perspective or from the public perspective. I think I would love to see what happens when Scott and Kip discover their relationship. How are they going to view it? Are they going to feel like, wait a second, we fought this for years and this just happened to us? These two have been, doing their stuff for years. They could have come out and set the ball rolling for us. But you never, it's got so much potential and so much story to tell. But
well, also depending on if they do more time jumps too. I'm very curious if they're gonna go that fast.
They did go really fast, but I was okay with that because it slows down towards the end.
I also don't know if they knew they're gonna get, because it ends in a way where you're like, oh, this is it, like it.
This could be it. I'd be curious to know if they expected a season 2.
I don't think they expected it to be this big.
I don't think so either. I mean, it's from
Yeah.
Crave Media, which,
It's
by the
a
way, like, what a
Canadian
great
show,
name.
yeah. No, it is cool, but no, but yeah, it's a Canadian show that just so happened to get like HBO got the rights to air it. Like it wasn't like for an American audience, so it wasn't like it was for a whole another country. So I think that's which makes sense because it's a hockey show. We have hockey here, but it's a much
Yeah.
bigger in Canada than it is here.
I think the thing that I was most impressed about with this show was that ultimately, by the end, I was rooting for every character. I was
Yeah,
rooting for
sure.
every character to be in a good spot, except for Elia's dick of a brother.
But he's not even in it that much. He's in it
No,
to
he's not.
affect the
He doesn't
show,
count.
but
Yeah,
yeah.
but you know, there's always those shows where the series where you have a show like this, and there has to be some sort of enemy. The mom
Mm.
who doesn't want their daughter in this sort of relationship. The dad who doesn't want to see his grandson raised by these sort of people. Like, there's always that enemy, and there was no enemy in this. The enemy was just their own fear. And I
I'll say
loved
Ilya's parents, his dad and his brother were kind of like, I don't want
Yes,
you
yeah,
to be
yeah, yeah.
this.
So
Yeah.
they were antagonists for sure,
Mm.
but by the end, all the main characters, you're rooting for all of them. And I like characters I can root for, and I
Mm.
I actually genuinely mean that in like a hoorah way, because episode 5 was such a roller coaster. Episode 5 had so much happening. It had that brilliant monologue that Ilya gives entirely in Russian, which made me just cry. It has that moment where they start calling each other and actually talking and having conversations. But it also has the moment where Scott comes out in public after winning the thing, and I remember literally watching it, and as soon as the camera pans to Kip, I was like, oh, is he gonna come out? Is he gonna come
Right.
out right now? He's gonna do it. He's gonna call him onto the ice. And I was in my bed and I shot upright, and I was sitting in a stupid mirror across from my bed, and I was like, oh, and I'm like cheering, like, oh my god, I'm such a nerd.
I was actually spoiled for that because I watched it all at the same time. So that was something I actually found out before I watched the episode. So yeah, I didn't get the surprise for that one.
That's honestly tragic, because that was a beautiful moment that I loved with all my heart and soul. I love that so much. I was like, he's
I
gonna
still
do it.
enjoy
He's
the
gonna do it.
scene.
He's gonna do it.
But yeah,
so
the
excited.
anticipation wasn't there as
Oh, it
much
was
because
so
of
good.
it. But it was still
It was
like
so
again, it
good.
was still a well written scene, so I liked it, and I liked that it was a
Yeah.
couple episodes after, and like we had distance from the couple. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, I get it's a really well paced show. That's something I keep
Yes.
celebrating because there's so many movies I saw recently, like Avatar. I walked out of Avatar, I was like, damn, I wish that was shorter. And there's so much media that they just bloat out a lot. And again, some media needs to be bloated out, but some don't. Like even Stranger Things, did it have to be 5,000 hours? I don't think so. So it was nice to have a show that I was like, wow, I actually wanted more because they left me wanting more. So I thought that was very cool. I think Amy's off. There we go.
Sorry,
So yeah.
my dog was
That's
getting
okay.
really, really anxious with the neighbors. We've got some new neighbors, and I was like, you gotta come in here. Yeah, no, I think the pacing of the show was great. I think it's a great example of how 6 episodes is wonderful. I've seen a lot of interesting conversations with friends of mine who are in the television industry, and they're all kind of split on the 6 episode thing,
Hmm.
because there's sort of this strange model of, okay, well, could this have been a movie? Are we taking
Sure.
people away from movies? Are we taking people away from the theaters?
See, I don't know if
Or
I would want this was perfect though. I don't think I would want
I
it to be a
agree.
movie.
I think it's just a new way that stories are told.
Mm.
It's so strange because you look at where we were 10, 15 years ago, and where we were with watching movies in theaters, and the reality that when Wicked 2 came out and I was hearing that it wasn't great, it was fine. It was fine. But it wasn't the level of part 1, and my brain was like, I could wait a month and it'll be out on streaming.
Well, especially post
Whereas,
COVID with that. Yeah.
yeah. And so it's just, I mean, the world has changed so dramatically in the last 5 years, but I think it's also given opportunities for shows like this where it's not long enough to be a whole series, where it can be a 250-page airport novel in 6 episodes, and you can tell a good honest story in the right amount of episodes and put good work into it. I think they hit all the angles they need to hit in the right 6 episodes. They even have a story. I mean, if you think about it, even episode 4 is Shane trying to see, am I gay? Can I be with a girl?
Which I
And
liked. We haven't mentioned her, but I actually really liked her character.
I do. I
Yeah,
loved
she
that
was
whole
fun.
and the whole scene where she's like, I don't think I'm doing it for you.
And I like the honesty, but they were like still like good
Yes.
friends. I like that they said, I like that episode a lot because it shows that
I
there
did
could be
too.
really good chemistry between a friend, and then you're like,
Mhm.
oh, we are just friends. That doesn't mean there's any less of our relationship. I still want to call you every day and hang out, but I just don't romantically like you, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And that's cool that you're gay. And I really like their connection a lot. That's the one thing I love and hate about this show is that there's these characters like Scott or Rose, I think her name was, that I wanted more from. But then I love it because I'm like, you gave me just enough that I wanted more. You didn't make them overstay their welcome either. So I enjoyed that.
I really like what you said there. I really like that they didn't overstay their welcome, because you're 100% right. It was just enough to give us what we needed, but not so much that we're like, all right, can we get on with the Scott scene? Like it was perfect. It was really well paced out. That was, what a great way to put it.
And again, I think that is the success of the show. Obviously, other successes is they do the sexy well. They do these relationships well. But again, if this was boring, if you have an episode 1 that just like went on and on and on, no one else would have gotten to episode 2. There's so many shows I've heard, and I haven't seen it, so I won't, say it's a critique on my side. But one of the popular shows, Pluribus, on the creators of Breaking Bad, I heard it's like, oh, episode 1's slow, but once you get to episode 4, it's great. I'm like, why do I want to wait until episode 4?
Well, that was back in the day. I mean, back in the day, as in 10 years ago. I mean, I it's funny because we started watching Spartacus and we've talked about it.
Which you can check
the
out that
original
episode we did
Spartacus.
too.
Yeah, we did watch this, but we did do a Spartacus episode. But I know you're not going to continue watching it. It does pick up really quickly. Episode 2, 3, 4 just dramatically picks up. But I'm there because I know that's going to happen. But you, if I tell people to go back and watch the OG Spartacus, it does take a couple episodes to get into it. And I wonder if the constraint of the 6-episode season makes them write a tighter script or tell the stories that have to be told.
Well, two things. I think it was obvious that there wasn't a huge budget for this show. So I think there was restraints on budget. I think there were restraints on not knowing they're going to get renewed. They make it a show that very much like they end literally driving off into the sunset. So it's like, it's over, right? This is the end of the show, but it gives so much room for a season 2. So it's honestly a way, this is a blueprint of how to do a season 1 of a show. Cause that's not what you want. You want to have a satisfying beginning, middle, and end that where you're like, okay, if we don't get renewed, we're fine. But then you want to have a Bible to give yourself enough to want to do more seasons. And I think that the show does a really good job at that for sure. And what I want to see next season, like I said, I want to see a little more hockey. But I just want to see, now that they're in a relationship and like you see how much they care for each other. I want to see, I said this to my friend Phil, and who also really liked the show. It's like, I want to see them have breakfast together. I want to see that's what
I like the day-to-day stuff.
And that's what Scott and Kip did really well because they lived with each other. And like you saw that a little bit in the end of the show. But yeah, I want to see the day-to-day stuff. I want to see and obviously they both have like a similar job. So it's not like, how's your day, honey? But like, yeah, how was your team? Like the little talks and stuff like that. I really want to see now that they know each other better.
How to make a long distance relationship work.
Sure.
Because you think 2 hours is close. It's not. I'm 2 hours from Los Angeles. Do you know how often I get up to Los Angeles? Once a year. Because there's traffic and there's you got work and they got work, and what happens if they're traveling and what happens if they never see each other. Now obviously they've done a long distance relationship, but they haven't done a long distance relationship
where they actually
as
like each other like that much,
where they admit it and they rely on each other, and they haven't really faced the fundamental differences between partners. They make fun of each other, like, oh, you're an asshole, or oh, you're such a dick, when they say things, but they haven't actually talked about the things that are gonna become issues with them. That's gonna come up. So I am excited. I'm stoked for season 2. I'm really excited. You know what else I'm really excited for, Kat? Season 2 of The Pit starts next week.
I have heard good stuff about The Pit.
Have you?
I've not seen it. I'm not a big medical drama person, but I'll be watching Scrubs if that counts for anything. That's the closest I'll get to medical. My parents are all on medicine, so I'm like, I have enough of it.
Can I dare you to watch episode 1 of The Pit just so I can hear your reaction?
You could dare me, and we could do an episode on it.
Okay, let's do it.
We could do a pilot pod on it.
Actually, we could probably start with season 2 pilot and be fine because
really?
It's a new day, so you don't really need to know the characters. I don't know. Anyway,
the last thing I'll say about Heated Rivalry, going to the couple, I think something will be really interesting about the sexier scenes too. Is now that they're a couple, you're going to see their, because also it's very like, oh, we're in the shadows. I'm going to meet in his apartment now. Like it's gonna be different too. So I think that's gonna be cool.
Yeah, I'm really excited. So I think that's going to wrap it up for Heated Rivalry Season 1. We will be back for Season 2. We're very excited. Friendly reminder that you can find the Legendary Ladies podcast on all your podcast streaming sites. Please like us, give 5 stars. You can find us on Patreon, patreon.com/thelegendaryladies. We really thank you for all your support. You help us get the equipment that we need, help with all our streaming fees. Anything that you're able to give is amazing. And you also have the option to buy individual episodes on Patreon. So if you see an episode you want to listen to, but you don't want to subscribe, that's cool. Just pay for the episode. Like the OG Heated Rivalry one, where we get really into it and talk about the spicy sexy. And Kat, what do you have going on right now? Where can folks find you online?
Right now I have a Kickstarter, Beast and Snow. So if you're looking for a sexy on the other end, I know, right? This is a queer lady fantasy fairy tale book where we have Belle as a werewolf from Beauty and the Beast, and then Snow White is a vampire. They get together, and the evil queen in this episode, in this issue, is a hybrid between a werewolf and a vampire. Crazy.
Ooh, a vampire.
Yeah, it's the last issue of this miniseries, so go check it out.
Excited.
And it just went on live on Kickstarter today, so it'll be live for a little bit.
You guys know Kat's always got a Kickstarter going on. And you guys can find me online at Amy_HYP. Yep. But I'm not doing anything right now, so just hang out with me on Instagram. I think that's gonna wrap everything up. And I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. Stay legendary.